Bants and Bants. Bants and Bants.
All systems go.
Bants and Bants.
Defiance.
Bants and Bants.
This rebel has a cause.
Bants and Bants.
We begin as wanderers, and we are wanderers still.
Welcome, everyone, to the inaugural live edition, the very first live edition of Bombs and Bants and Wednesday Rants. As always, I'm your dedicated and humble host, John Wilder, coming to you from an undisclosed location hidden deep beneath the surface of the earth. With me, as always, is Mark.
Hey there.
And the missus.
I'm awake. I swear to God. I'm here.
And Mark is really here this week. Yay!
Well, you only think I'm here. I'm not.
Yeah, we had complete unsupervised mayhem last week. I tell you, Pugsley had to drive us out of the ditch. So, but lo, we're back for another weekend of zany takes on the news. And I couldn't be happier because I don't know if you guys heard, but there's a war going on between Russia and the Ukraine. I know it's news to me. Western countries remain fully committed to their support of Zelensky in Ukraine. Sky News Australia commentator Corey Bernardi says maybe we should be looking a little closer at the man many view as a great leader and, as he puts it, the second coming of Churchill.
It's just like what we've seen being presented in this war. The propaganda coming out of the presidential office rivals only that coming out of the Kremlin. It's just that one side's lies are being dutifully regurgitated across the Western world to sustain a proxy war. It's a battle between the East and the West.
And he's absolutely right. This is a war between the East and the West, and it is a proxy war. So
I was looking for memes for this, right? And here's one I pulled up that I thought was pretty funny. Kind of went right along with this story.
Well, I have to switch views so I can see your dynamic.
That's okay.
Yes.
We'll wait.
Good morning, sir. Have you welcome, Zelensky. Oh, so anyway, so our and you promised we're streaming, right? Because I'm not showing us. That's okay. All right. So Bernardi discusses this a little bit more, and he tells us some things that are happening in Ukraine that just don't pass the sniff test.
He's banned the Russian language in the public service. He's banned a dozen opposition parties, and he's shut down non-state-run media. He's also busy entertaining attention-seeking politicians from all over the world, including our own Prime Minister, and Nancy Pelosi, of course. And his wife, well, she's busy visiting the White House while posing for Vogue. Something about all of this doesn't add up. There's an agenda at work in the Ukraine that is much greater than staving off the Russian invaders. We are wise to take everything we're told about this conflict with a huge dose of salt.
You know, me personally, I have stayed manifestly and steadfastly. Boy, that's a lot of syllables for just two words.
It is.
I've stayed neutral. You know why? I'm not on the side of the Russians, and I'm definitely not on the side of the Ukrainians. The people of both countries have my sympathy. The leaders of both companies do not. I don't know. What are your thoughts, Mark?
Now, I feel the same way. I mean, I don't think there's I mean, I certainly not going to fall all over myself, supporting the Russians in this. I think they were wrong to have conducted their invasion. I understand their security concerns fully, and I think they have some valid security concerns, but, that's neither here nor there on the way they conducted their invasion. I mean, right now, they're actually, the way they're moving their forces around are in a way to address those concerns, but the initial invasion wasn't. The initial invasion was far more, I should say, aggressive in how much land they were trying to seize. compared to what their actual concerns would validate. So, and yeah, there's just, I mean, you look at the governments, there's no, I mean, they're governments. There's no good on either of them. And, you know, again, I can look at World War II and say, well, okay, everybody had propaganda back then, and we're not vilifying the English for their propaganda or anything, or even our own government. But, you know, shutting down the opposition parties and so forth goes beyond what they even did in World War II. So yeah, there's no good guys.
And the missus, however, though, is a really big Zelensky fan. Why don't you tell everybody how you feel about the crazy Z?
What, that I think he might be the Antichrist?
Well,
or did you want me to
said
say
it.
something less crazy than that?
No,
I'm
right.
just, and let's just make it clear that I'm not, I don't know what, I'm not crazy about this. I'm like, all the signs are kind of pointing in that direction. I'm not 100% convinced, but it's certainly possible. I think the possibility of it being the case is not zero, is what I'm saying. Though I'm not thoroughly convinced.
Okay. This, in my mind, what I think we're saying here is we are seeing this is the nexus of the crisis. See, look at the beautiful lyricism. This is the nexus of the East and West fight. It's happening right here. And in fact, this is the global hegemon. It's the post-World War II hegemon led by the United States versus, BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, believe it or not. I mean, they're all kind of on board in this counter block. And it's not driven by ideology nearly as much as it's driven by who gets what money.
Yeah, I don't know, because when this whole thing started, there were very clear lines here in the U.S. as to who was on what side, right?
Well, the next story ties directly with this scenario, because you may have heard, just like you might have heard about there being a little bit of a conflict going on between Russia and the Ukraine, Nancy Pelosi has gone to Taiwan. Not Taiwan on, which would be her normal thing that she would be doing on a Tuesday night. Chinese Ambassador Qin Gong seems to think China can tell U.S. politicians where they can go.
The Speaker's visit is a major event upgrading the substantive relations between the U.S. and Taiwan, and sends a very wrong signal to Taiwan independent separatist forces. It is a serious violation of the One China principle and the provisions in the 3 Sino U.S. joint communiques.
And Nick, can you get an English translation? That was really
He is really kind of hard to understand. I wasn't exactly sure what he was saying there.
But Speaker Pelosi quietly told China what they could do.
Hang on. Okay, so I screwed something up here, and I forgot to put a couple of things in, and I'm trying to do this while we're in the middle of the podcast, so
I should go faster so you can...
exactly, so I have less time to do this. Okay, all right, here's Nancy.
While China has stood in the way of Taiwan participating and going to certain meetings, that they understand that they will not stand in the way of people coming to Taiwan.
See, and I dislike Nancy Pelosi in probably every way a human being can like or dislike Nancy Pelosi. But the flip side is...
To the town of Taipei City flew a vodka-smelling witch.
What do you mean by that?
Hardly spoke to no one
Hang on
round her cousin
just a
DT's made her
minute.
twitch.
Freaking DT.
That's not it. Okay, there we go. Sorry. Like I said, I got to put stuff in here. And I have no quiet way to do this. Okay, now you can get back to what you're talking about.
Okay. Well,
sorry.
Here's where I'm torn. Number one, I remember when Obama was wandering around the world, and he would meet, like the Saudi prince, and he would bow to him, or he'd meet the Queen and bow to her. You know what? The American president should bow to no man. I mean, that's the embodying America. And regardless of what individual American citizens may choose or choose not to do, the American president shouldn't bow to anyone, not to any man or any other nation. Now, Nancy Pelosi.
According to fans of the cartoon The Jetsons, George Jetson's birthday was July 31st, 2022, which means he was born this week. So what if we updated the Jetsons? And then it'll be gone for the year 20. Okay, now it's gone. Sorry. I'm done now. I'm completely done doing that now. It's all fixed.
Okay, but I'm trying to get this out because, again, it pains me to say that if the United States wants to send Nancy Pelosi to Taiwan, that's the business of the United States. And again, Taiwan, we say it's the official government position that it's not a sovereign nation. I mean, the whole Taiwan-China business is a mess to begin with. But if they've got an airport and they allow us to land, that should be no businesses of China's. Or, yeah, that's just difficult. Mark, what do you think?
All right, so first of all, I want to put out there again. There seems to be a certain group of people that see China as somehow good because they're diametrically opposed to Biden and the World Economic Forum and et cetera, et cetera. So first of all, I want to make clear, the enemy of my enemy is not my friend necessarily. And people forget that. China's evil. The CCP is evil. And there's nothing good or redeeming about them. I'm sorry, but I'll just say it that way. They are a valid security concern. I view them as much more dangerous than Russia. In fact, I didn't really think Russia was much of a threat other than being as a regional power. I mean, that's really what Russia's become. China, though, is going to be expansionist. They are, and they're going to pursue it. Now, being the Star Trek original series fan that I am, I think there's actually one episode that has a very good analogy to what's going on now, and that's the one where they actually first see or meet up with the Romulans. And if you remember, there was the neutral zone, and the Romulans send out a ship to destroy some of these monitoring outposts.
That'd be balance of terror.
Balance of terror, yes. And Captain Kirk decides that in order to prevent a war, the Federation has to take a strong stance, and so he hunts the ship down and destroys it, reasoning that if he didn't, then the Romulans would view the Federation as being weak. Now, anyone familiar with the original show knows that the Federation basically represents like the United States or the West. The Klingons were the Russians, and the Romulans were basically the Chinese, if comparing to the Cold War situation at the time. And I think that analogy holds really well here. I mean, what we have is a string of islands that essentially prevent China from expanding out as a naval power. And right for the last decade, they've been poking at that. And, just like, maybe if you had the Romulans poking at those monitoring stations along the neutral zone, And we don't dare let them get away with provocations, and especially saying, oh, you can't visit Taiwan because it's ours. No, absolutely no. They don't get to do that. And I think very strongly, it ought to be a no, and quit monkeying around. And frankly, I think if they were to lose a couple ships or lose a couple aircraft that wandered over Taiwan, are they going to go to a nuclear war over a couple aircraft lost? Probably not. But it's a line in the sand that really needs to be protected. So, the world would be a much, much worse place if the Chinese were able to successfully make the U.S. back down in order for them to expand further. And we know it because we can see what happens to all these countries that they've dealt with, how they've trapped them in debt, their, economic collapse in some cases because of it, and so forth. So
in other words, you're telling me, Mark, you don't have an opinion. The missus. What are
yeah,
your
and
thoughts?
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to go on so long, but that is really, I think the situation facing us. So.
Well, I'm just kind of glad to see that there's something that we as Americans can kind of all come together and have a consensus on. Because I don't think there have been not a lot. There are some, there's always naysayers and grumblers in the background, but there haven't been very many people that I've read or heard say she shouldn't have gone. Except for the president, of course. He said that. But, I certainly never agree with Nancy Pelosi on pretty much, anything. She could say the sky was blue and I'd run outside to check. But on this, I think she did the right thing. Continuing to go and like you said, Mark, put the line in the sand. You just can't tell us we can't go to Taiwan. You can't tell our Speaker of the House what she can't do.
And that is correct. But here's the one lingering bit that I have, and one lingering concern is, for the same reason, I don't think that the United States, looking back, should have gotten involved in World War I or even potentially World War II. Leave those things as European affairs. I sense the same sort of manipulation going on behind the scenes in this as well, trying to drum up emotions that could be used for truly devastating effect.
But you know what the old truism is: when things aren't going well at home, economy. Speaking of stories that are coming up, you start a war.
Yep. Well, but Nancy reminds me of an old gunfighter. So why don't you take it away?
To the town of Taipei City flew a vodka-smelling witch.
What do you mean by that?
Hardly spoke to no one round her 'cause the DTs made her twitch.
Freaking DTs.
No one dared to take her vodka every time she took a sip.
Hey, get your own.
As a stranger there among them, she had titanium in her hip.
How about on the round?
It was early in the morning when Nan's plane did touch the ground. She flew in from the east, though her hangover did pound.
Where's my aspirin?
She's a drunken San Fran doofus, came the whisper from each lip.
You know who I am.
But she's here to drink some vodka with titanium in her hip.
Speaker of the freaking House, that's who.
Coming out to meet her was she, the Chai Calm head.
Him? He's tiny.
Many men had called him Pooh, and those many men were dead.
Don't scare me none.
He brought a tank of vodka as she sat out 2-shot glasses.
You and me, Pooh.
He gasped because he knew that she'd promptly kick his ass.
Oh, excuse me. I almost slipped out.
There was very little talking as they both began to drink.
Let's do this, Pooh Bear.
He had hoped that he could best her, but very soon his hopes did sink.
Time got thrown out.
When everything was over, Nancy poured herself one more.
Is that it?
Then walked away the victor while she snored upon the floor.
Next time, send a real man.
Now, who's picking up the tab?
Something reminds me of Arrested Development in that.
Now, excuse me, I have to get back to rehab.
Yeah. If only that we could settle conflicts in the modern age, mano a mano, with Nancy Pelosi
Shot for shot.
and
You could put that on pay-per-view and it would make $1 billion.
Yes, a tanker truck of vodka. So, all right,
but not Russian vodka because we've, we're punishing Russia.
I'm okay. The Swedes make pretty good vodka too.
All right, well, that's absolutely leading us to the next story. So the next, apparently, the one thing that we haven't done enough in this country is taxing, and the other that we haven't done enough of is spending, even though I guess maybe inflation makes us want to tax and spend more. So Democrats are on the verge of passing their huge tax and spend. I mean, Inflation Reduction Act aimed at reducing the impact of inflation. I don't know how you spend more to get inflation down, but
it's really complex. You wouldn't understand.
Yeah. Yes. The bill reportedly includes $790 billion in offsets to counter $485 billion in new spending on items such as climate change. So we'll just burn the money. Affordable Care Act.
The Germans might be doing that this winter.
Medicare affairs. Gerard Baker, and it would be better if it were Gerard Butler, because
I always call him that. I always call him Gerard Butler.
This is the Journal. The August 1st edition of the Wall Street Journal says this Democratic hucksterism is enough to make the used car salesman blush. But you only have that from the article, so here is a robot reading this column.
Because the spending provisions kick in more quickly than the revenue-raising provisions, the bill would actually increase the deficit in its first few years. According to the Penn-Wharton budget model, it would begin to reduce the deficit only in 2027. So the Inflation Reduction Act, sold to Americans on the basis that it will reduce the surging inflation the Democrats themselves helped unleash, won't even have any downward effect on the deficit for 5 years. I'm skeptical about the average lawmaker's ability to predict the inflation rate in 5 years, but if we have to wait until 2027 to get on top of the current cost of living crisis, we are in trouble.
The bot makes a good point.
And it says a strangely feminine bot to be playing a dude. Or
I didn't pick that. I actually got that right from the Wall Street Journal's website. So whatever intern they have doing that, yeah, they could have picked a dude. Yeah. And the funny thing is that Gerard Butler actually does a podcast. He could read his own columns. But all I'm saying is Democrats raising taxes and spending more money.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
Gerard Butler.
Did I call him Gerard Butler again?
This is Sparta.
I can't not call him that. I told you, I always call him that.
I wonder if he types it.
Sparta! There he is. Live from the page of the Wall Street Journal.
I wonder if he sits and writes his column naked except for a maroon cape. I mean, that's how I do our shows every night.
I think he's kind of a pasty little English guy, so maybe, who can say?
Mark, your thoughts?
Well, so the method that they want to use to crush inflation right now is to basically drive people out of work, crush smaller businesses and try to reduce or at least stop any increases in wages and so forth. So I'm sure that buried somewhere in that massive bill is some section on how to destroy small and medium businesses.
Yes, I'm sure, and I'm sure it's called the Small Business Protection Act.
Undoubtedly,
right?
Yeah, no, you're seeing right now. I have seen multiple people talking about in Indiana where they build a lot of mobile homes, shutting them down. So what you're seeing are those middle to upper middle class luxuries starting to just disappear. And I think that you're going to see more and more of that. So things like that, it's going to be kind of rough.
Upper middle class luxuries, you mean like food and heat? That sort of thing?
No, those are going to keep going up in price.
Yeah.
So, there's that. All right. Let's think about something that might be happier. Yes, Missouri.
Is that happier?
Well, I don't know. Your mom never forgave Missouri. But that was for the Civil War, and that's actually
true.
A true story.
That is actually a true story.
Your mom could hold a grudge.
She could. She was a woman who could hold a grudge.
So if you're driving through Missouri in the next few days and you spot a zebra running wild and free, but I think there's a Quiet Riot song about that. You haven't gone crazy. There's actually a zebra on the loose. KMIZ-ABC 17. Columbia's Lucas Geisler reports.
The gate for Marty the zebra was left open, according to its owners, and since Joe McDevitt, who owns Black and White Roofing, has been documenting the search for Marty on his TikTok. According to McDevitt, they've spotted Marty recently and attempted to use a dart gun to administer a tranquilizer to the zebra in an effort to get Marty back home.
And there you have it. If you see a zebra, roll down your window and yell, "Hey, Marty!" If it doesn't respond, it's the wrong zebra.
Marty! 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 Marty!
Okay, Doc Brown. So, Mark, what are your zebra thoughts? You refuse to comment on this?
I'm thinking that minimum 30-06.
The question is, what does a haunch of zebra meat taste like? And the answer, bald eagle.
Roasted over moon rocks.
Yes. And we have a sadder note right now. Actress Nichols, well known for her most famous role, playing Lieutenant Uhura on the original Star Trek, passed away over the weekend at the age of 89. She was ready to leave the show after the first season to go to Broadway, and actually had given her notice to Gene Roddenberry. He told her to consider it over the weekend, which she did, partially helped by a chance encounter at an event that weekend with someone who said he was a huge fan. Martin Luther King Jr. told her she couldn't quit because her role on the show was so important.
But I knew that I was something else, that the world was not the same. And that's all I could think of as Dr. King. Everything that he had said. The world sees us for the first time as we should be seen.
And the interview with her talking about that is available on YouTube. She's kind of a circumlocuous storyteller, so it takes her a little while to get at the point. So that was really the best soundbite I could come out of there with it. But it's a really interesting story, and the way she tells it about, going to the event and how she was ready to leave the show, and how really just what he said floored her about the importance of what she was doing. And he said to her, the role that you're playing on that show is not the role for a black woman. Anybody could be in that role. Gene could put an alien in that role. But you're there, and you have the chance to make a difference. And I think she did. Not only with that role, but of course also on the Star Trek itself. First interracial kiss ever broadcast on television in the U.S. between her and Kirk, right?
It was indeed.
Mm-hmm.
Mark?
Yeah, it was the first kiss. I don't know. I think she played an important... I don't know. I mean, so I grew up watching the reruns, and I'll be honest, everything on that show seemed pretty normal as far as relationships between races, and it has always galled me just how destructive the destruction the left has wrought on, I think, the better relations and feelings that had been growing, starting with Star Trek and going forward. And
Yeah, I read this week that in 1990 they did a poll of black teens, and they asked how many of them out of 10 felt they were ever impacted at all in any way in their lives by racism, and only 1 out of 10 felt that they were. That's in the 90s. So,
well, and I think Mark brings up a great point. I mean, I was a huge Star Trek fan when I was a little bitty kid. I mean, you know this because, okay, so for those of you not in the know, John Wilder and I met on a blind date. And as we were talking about stuff, our conversation turned to Star Trek because we were both Trek nerds. And I told him when I was a little girl, I wanted to marry Captain Kirk. And he said, well, isn't that convenient? Because when I was a little boy, I wanted to be Captain Kirk. So, yeah. Star Trek had a big influence on the early part of my life. And I felt like you did, Mark, with what you said, that I never even noticed that. You know, I don't want to sound naive or anything, but even as a little kid, it never occurred to me to think about Uhura being black. She was just part of the crew. And she did her job like everyone else.
well, but what about the Jetsons?
What about the Jetsons?
What if Rosie, who was the domestic in, what if that had been played by, for instance, someone of a different race?
Let's see. According to fans of the cartoon The Jetsons, George Jetson's birthday was July 31st, 2022, which means he was born this week. So what if we updated the Jetsons for the year 2022?
How many times have I told you to keep the money from our side business of cooking methamphetamine stashed in the floorboards? What if the DEA decides to pay us a visit?
You know, we wouldn't have this problem if I could hire a maid to keep the house clean. Or even just some help.
What do you mean? It's not like you ever clean the house anyway.
Because I'm so busy cleaning other things, like cleaning all that extra income. Besides, George, I have a surprise.
What kind of surprise?
I went out and hired some help.
You know how I feel about that.
Now, George, don't get upset. I think you'll be happy when you see the model I found. Plus, he comes with his own AK-47. Here he comes now.
AK-47, the very best there is. When you absolutely, positively got to kill every motherfucker in the room, except no substitutes.
He's fantastic.
I don't remember asking you a goddamn thing.
Little guest appearance there from Samuel L. Jackbot. How did you feel about that role, Samuel L. Jackbot?
I don't remember asking you a goddamn thing.
All right, then.
Oh, Samuel. A man of few phrases.
I don't remember asking you a goddamn thing.
So when's he going to ask, what you got in your wallet?
I don't remember asking you a goddamn thing.
It's the perfect answer to every, except about what should we do about all these snakes on this planet?
I don't remember asking you a goddamn thing.
I don't know, seems to work for that too.
He should be the replacement for Mr. Rogers and Mr. Rogers.
What are we doing today, kids?
I don't remember asking you a goddamn thing.
Mr. McFeely shows up. Well, hello there, Mr. Jackson.
I don't remember asking you a goddamn thing.
It just makes its own sauce, doesn't it? Okay. Oh, I think the audience at least officially knows we're 12. All right.
I don't remember asking you a goddamn thing.
Yeah, he always has to have the last word.
Okay, well, we'll move along to the braying jackass of the week.
This is Neil Young.
Hey, get that jackass out of here.
And I'm proud to present my brain jackass of the week.
We have a celebrity match on this. I think we'll call this the Tournament of Champions
It might
section.
be, yeah.
COVID positive resident Biden was out and about mingling with the public while promising his support for the Democrat-sponsored Inflation Reduction Act. I just gave you the name. Noting how they might as well call it the Build Back Better, except with the different name act.
Yesterday, I spoke with both Senators Schumer and Manchin and offered my support for a historic agreement to fight inflation and lower costs for American families. It's called the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022. Some of you will see a lot of similarities between the beginning of the Build Back Better initiative. It's not all of it, but we've moved a long way.
And then he just kind of trailed off and fell off the dais and sprained an ankle. No, that actually didn't happen. He kept talking.
Just a second. Did he say it was going to lower costs? So this is a deflationary act?
Yes.
Yes. And so what I noticed is he's lost his articles. He no longer says a, an, and the before rambling off into incoherence.
Perhaps someone put his brain in an oven. You cooked her nines.
Gosh. All right, it's going to take a real pro to beat idiocy like that. So let's go with the second cut, which is because unable to deal with another week of not being in the running for the Jackass Award, our esteemed vice president announced that she wants to get the traveling trophy back, but she announced $1 billion to fight what she calls a climate crisis to deal with flooding like what has happened in Kentucky.
Climate change has become a climate crisis, and a threat has now become a reality. In recent days, deadly floods have swept through Missouri and Kentucky, washing away entire neighborhoods, leaving at least 35 dead, including babies, children. As has been reported, 4 children from one family. So the devastation is real. The harm is real. The impact is real. And we are witnessing it in real time.
I think she's been off practicing not laughing at inopportune moments, you know. Like, there are 35 people dead. Some of them are... Some of them are babies. Yeah. I think that's where seriously, I'm kind of serious about that. Because she's been out of the spotlight, you know. Hey, come on. We think Joe's been sick. He's got the vid. He's an old guy. Again, you got to be ready standing on the sidelines. Warm-ups ripped off. Ready to run onto the court at any moment. You got to stop laughing at really serious things in inappropriate times.
Yes. Kamala in the Lincoln bedroom. With the pillow. So, Mark, who's your vote for?
Oh gosh, it's so hard because they're both such abject liars. Jeez, I'm gonna go with Kamala Harris this time, just because she's not senile and. Well, she doesn't have the excuse of senility to spout out her lies. So
that brings a split decision because I gotta go with Uncle Joe. The Mrs. U are our tiebreaker.
So normally I would pick Kamala. Like I said, I think she's been practicing. So I gotta go with Joe on this one too. Sorry to have to overrule you there, Mark. I think Gramps takes the cake.
We need to like buy a gross of these trophies and start sending them out.
Absolutely, they need them.
But that wouldn't lead to a visit from the FBI, would it?
No, not at all. And this has been Neil Young's Brain Jackass of the Week.
All right. Well, let's see what we got in a quick tour around the world. Did you have any particular stories that you had in mind, Mark?
Well, I don't know how many of the people watching this know, but So if you take the Gay Pride Plus flag, that's the one that's got the little triangles that are the different, I guess, supposed to be skin tone colors. Anyway, you can arrange them. You can arrange them, those flags, so that the little skin tone color sections form a swastika. And some poor unfortunate soul in England decided to post a picture of it as a lark and was arrested because he caused someone anxiety.
I was going to
Do
say
I have a license? Do you have a license
idea.
to that?
Don't.
So there's that one. I've just got to say, looking at Joe Biden's accomplishments so far, he's done more Republican things than almost any president. He's broken the back of federal spending. He has made abortion illegal in many states. I mean, how is this guy just not the dream president?
True international effort to pressure.
That's right.
Come on, man.
Oh.
So here's my I do actually have one this week. So as we were getting ready to start the podcast, I was going through my inbox and I got this weird email. And it looks like it's from a person, so I was like instantly spammer, but I read a little bit of the preview and I'm like, well, I need to open that and see what it says. So here's what it is. For the first time, we're trying to get an audience with a philanthropist to help us complete a pretty interesting and important project we're in the middle of producing called The Conspiracy Test, which is a gamified interactive platform to help combat conspiracy thinking. This is where you, me, come in. We created a shareable PDF slide deck called The Big Pitch, and your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to share this with 2 or 3 people and ask them to do the same. And then it's a plug for their website, and then it says, but the interesting part is not to share it with just anyone, but rather a few people who you think might get us a degree or 2 closer to someone like Bill Gates, Mackenzie Scott, Mike Cannon-Brookes, I don't know who the hell those people are, or another philanthropist who might be philosophically aligned with our mission to popularize critical thinking and combat conspiracy thinking in particular.
Well, there.
Yeah. Well, this just kind of seems to me like it's a big "the government can never be wrong" thing. Yeah.
I have some breaking news.
Okay. Hang on. Let me find the thing.
Wait.
Breaking news.
Okay.
Don't know what we've got going on here, but it sounds like Taiwan's defense ministry said on Thursday that unidentified aircraft, probably drones, had flown on a Wednesday night above the area of the Kinmen Islands off the coast of China. And the Taiwanese fired flares at it. So getting a little closer to getting spicy time out there.
It is some spicy times.
And the rumor is that China is set to begin effectively a blockade of Taiwan hours after Pelosi concludes a visit. Now, this is one thing I want to note on this is I saw an analysis of Taiwan, and Taiwan has a critical importance to the American economy and the world economy because it produces so many semiconductors. So the thesis, the particular website, which is Epsilon, Ben Hunt is Epsilon. Anyway, his theme was that Taiwan is Arrakis. Those semiconductors must flow, and without the semiconductors, the world economy is shot, and that both sides would be willing to do anything to get it. So that was an interesting take, and not one that made me feel better.
No kidding. Interesting times.
Well, maybe it'll give our attack submarines something to do for a while.
There you go. Also, there has been a real big complaint about immigrants moving into the country. The problem is they're moving in, they're speaking their own language, they are being rude and obnoxious, and the home people in the home country want them out. And this is Americans that moved to Mexico. And in fact, the Mexicans want them to leave. And so, this is generating levels of irony that I didn't think possible. In fact, here's a headline column: "The new generation of smug American expats in Mexico needs to face the truth."
I'm sorry, I thought that was a joke.
No, that's
maybe they'll build a wall.
Yeah, build a wall. And North Shore University Health Systems has settled for $10.3 million with 500 healthcare workers who were denied religious exemptions from the COVID jab. So $20,000 for employee. How's that feeling?
Coronavirus!
For unvaxxed folks?
Coronavirus!
Yep, there you go. So there's some didn't say it was good news, didn't say it was bad news, but it certainly is a smattering of news that you just won't hear anyone or anywhere else. I mean, you will if you look for it.
Oh, the silence is deafening.
Yes. Well, it sounds like...
That's always great when you have a medium that is mostly audio.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, then I should probably say, on that note...
I was ready to play that, but I thought you might have something more to say, so I waited.
Nah, that's pretty much it.
That's a good deal. You can dance.
Thank you once again for joining us here on Bombs and Bants and Wednesday Rants. Once again, executing host duties as if I had a bunch to drink, but I'm sober. It's I, John Wilder, joined by
Mark, maybe,
and this is.
I completely missed the mark.
We'll never get that right. We'll never get it right. Never. That's part of our charm.
Yeah.
We'll keep telling ourselves that.
No one expects the Spanish Inquisition. Okay.
Except us. We always expect the Spanish Inquisition. Just no one ever expects us to end up on time. Yeah. And here we are talking minutes and minutes after the music ends.
Say the words.
Y'all come back now, you hear?